Hi everyone, it's time for the Beginner Lampwork Challenge Group January Challenge, January 2020. So what I'm going to show you guys this time is to go in a little scene for a winter scene or Christmas scene or whatever you want. I'm going to show you guys how to make a little conifer tree. So I happen to want some snow on my little tree. So I have a little bit of white enamel powder that I'm going to use. I also have this green, they called it grass green pastel, but this is not the green grass pastel I was aiming for when I ordered this particular glass, but oh well, it comes in handy for trees. So all I need is this color and a brown to put as my tree trunk. If you want snow, then you need some enamel or some frit in white, unless you want it to look like a dog has had at it, then you can add some yellow. But I am going to use white personally, and I'm going to make a tree. I'm going to make it a fairly decent sized one. I didn't dip my mandrels super long, but this is a good, I'd say 2 inches, 2-inch tall tree. You can make it as big or as small as you want. Right now I'm just putting on the base layer, which is just going to be a really long barrel shaped bead onto my mandrel. Now, what you want with these trees is to start your barrel, and then you're going to make it into a cone, because trees are smaller at the top and get fatter as they go down. You're going to add more glass to whatever you want to be the base of your tree. Mine, because of the way that I do the next step, I find it easier if the base is to my right side. So that's where I'm going to add most of my glass. So at this point I'm going to start building up my base of my cone here. I want to heat the tip of my cone every so often as well. That way it doesn't crack. You can give yourself a better idea of how much glass you need to add to your cone by go ahead at this step and heat up that what's going to end up being the tip of your cone and rolling it down into that cone shape. So you can see I need a lot more glass between where that cone shape is started and where it's going to end at the bottom of my this right hand tip of my mandrel. So now I can see where I need to add more glass because I've already started my cone. I'm going to add more glass in there. You can make narrow little trees with this. You can make super fat ones. It all depends on what you're aiming for. I'm making little, what I'm calling wine glass cloches. So it'll be a wine glass that I'll put a little scene inside of, and then I'll make the wine glass into a candle holder. I saw it on Facebook. Somebody had listed it, or put it up on Pinterest, I believe, and I thought it was such a cute idea for Christmas candles to be on. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm making my mother-in-law a gift hopefully she'll use for years and years to come. Okay, so now you can see I've got my cone is getting a little more cone shaped. I still want some more at the bottom of my tree. And every time you heat up your cone, you want to make sure you get that tip too, because it's narrow now. It's more likely to crack. So at that angle is how I'm marvering this, so that way that can look more cone shape. This bottom portion of my cone, right now I don't feel like it needs to be perfect, because what's going to happen is I'm going to add a trunk down there, and any imperfections in it are going to be kind of covered up by how I do the pine cone look of this tree. So if it's not perfect, it's not a big deal. If you are a perfectionist and you absolutely feel you have to have it perfect, now is the time then that you're going to want to marver that down a little. And if there's a little bit stuck to the mandrel, that's actually a good thing, because that's what our brown, that's going to be our tree trunk, is going to adhere to. So now's the time to put on your brown trunk. I'm insurance heating the rest of my cone. It's a nicely shaped cone now. I'm gonna go ahead and put on my brown tree trunk, and I want to make sure that it's touching that green of the tree, because if it's not adhered to that, then it's just going to pop off. And if you want to make positively sure that it's adhered, you go around the base here and you use a tool, a marver, or whatever kind of tool that you have, and you make sure that they're pressed together and heated up enough to melt together, which I have done. I can use this marver here. Even out my little tree trunk a little bit, make it more round. I want to heat up this edge, the tip of my cone of my tree, because like I say, if that's very thin, so if it gets too cold, it will pop and crack apart. Now I'm coming back down to my tree trunk, and I'm gonna make my tree trunk flat. I came off the end of my marver, or my mandrel with this particular tree, because I'm going to be putting it into a seed. So if you don't come off the end of your marver, then the end of your mandrel, then you can use a marver to get in there and flatten out the bottom of your tree. Now is the fun part of making these trees. Okay, that other part was the hard part, getting it to look kind of tree shaped. So next, I'm going to take that green that I made the base of my tree with, and I'm just insurance heating my tree here for a second, and I'm going to take a pea, just kind of not even pea size, just the tip of my rod of green, and I'm going to push it down onto my tree and then pull downward and cut it off with the flame so that it looks like a little I don't know, like a little leaf. So I have the tip of my green ready, I'm pushing it down onto the tree where I wanted my leaf to be, and then I'm pulling down and using that flame to cut it off. And I'm going to go all the way around the tree doing that. So I push it down, pull down, heat it up, push it down, pull it down, heat it up, push it down, pull it down. All the way around the skirt of the tree. go. Now I'm going to go back up to the tip of the tree here where it hasn't seen any heat for a little while. The tip of this cone, and I can see it's cracked a little bit. And that's because I wasn't able to get up there with heat. That's why it's important to get back in there and give it insurance heat every so often. So now I'm healing it. And by healing it, I'm just superheating it. I don't want it to lose its shape. So I'm just going to marver it a little bit to make sure it's not losing its shape. I'm going to come down here and give some insurance heat down here. Otherwise, while I'm fixing one part, the other part's going to break. Okay, so that's back to being fixed. And now you can see the skirt of my tree. And that's what we're going to do all the way up the tree. You put on one round and then you heat up the rest of the tree to make sure that you have insurance heat in there. So I'm heating up that spot, pressing it down just right above the previous one, and in between the two leaves that I put down earlier is where I'm pushing down and pulling down. Now you're trying to make it so that they don't all meld together, so you're purposefully heating the area. You're heating it with a purpose. You're not just randomly heating it, and you're not overheating it. Okay, now that's had some time for my upper half to cool down again, so I want to make sure I get in there and heat it. Heat my bottom. I don't want my trunk to fall off. But I also don't want to melt in all this work that I've just done. So I'm gently heating those areas. Okay? I'm gently heating the areas that I've just put leaves onto. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my next round. Again, it's just right above it and in between the two petals that I made before. I'm going just all the way around. Now, it's as it gets narrower up towards the top, there's going to take less leaves to fill it in, so you're going to find some don't have a corresponding spot in between, and that's okay. You just fill it in as you can. Now I'm heating up, I'm giving it insurance heat in between, and if there's one of the leaves that looks like it really is pointy on the end, I want to make sure I'm rounding those up, and you'll find that they get the most heat because they're jutting out. Now you can see them. Now I'm ready. I'm going to heat up, insurance heat my trunk, and I'm going to insurance heat the top. I'm going to do my next round. Heating it up again, and this is, like I say, just gently heating up these leaves that I've created so that they keep their texture. I'm ready to do my next row. We're getting closer to the top. I think I have 2 more full rows before I do the top row. So you're pushing it down, pulling it down, and cutting it off in the flame. Pushing it down, pulling it down, cutting off in the flame, keeping the rest of that tree out of the flame. So really the only thing that's in the flame is that when you're heating up the full rod, and then when you're cutting it off. Okay. is my purposeful heat that I'm putting into my leaves so that I'm not melting them down. I'm just getting those nubs to be not pointy. Not pokey, I should say. I want them to be kind of pointy. Alright, and here's my last one, my last round. So when I'm doing that last round, I'm making sure that it's touching a little bit onto that mandrel, the top of that, the very tip of that cone, and onto the mandrel a little bit, and that way it looks like it's completed. Looks more tree-like up at the top than if it were not touching the mandrel. Okay, so that's my little tree. Now I'm gonna put snow on him because it's winter time and I'm making a little Christmas scene. So I've got my enamel pot here. I'm gonna heat it up just enough so it's got some heat in it, but it's not melting in my pretty little leaves. And then I'm gonna put the tree downward and put my enamel onto the jutty outy parts. And I'm gonna melt in that enamel a little bit. Again, this is more just a gentle heat so that the enamel will stay there. And it doesn't take much heat to get enamel to stick. And you'll see these little guys, these little trees that I've been making in my in the challenge introductory, I think. Okay, so I hope you guys have fun with these. Bye.